We got change coming to Kinnick Stadium in 2024, people. At least on offense. Maybe. I don't know for sure. Kirk Ferentz still is in control. But Brian Ferentz was let go after yet another lackluster offensive season. And Ferentz has hired Tim Lester, the former Western Michigan head coach, to now run the show. Is this a good hire by the Hawkeyes? A bad hire by the Hawkeyes? What offensive personnels are we going to see that differ from last season? And more importantly, if Kirk is still the one in control, does any of this really matter? Let's go ahead and discuss. But if you are new here, welcome on into the channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on Tim Lester returning to college football. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, Big Ten fans, Iowa faithful, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to get to 1,000 plus subscribers and actually become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. So, Tim Lester last season was on staff with the Green Bay Packers, and now he's headed back to school. He's going to call plays. He's going to lead the Hawkeyes offense. And here's the bottom line. Immediately, simply because of he was hired, it's already an upgrade. It could not get much worse than what was on display with Brian Ferentz. And we can say that that was partially due to Kirk. We won't have the entire answer to that one until the end of this season. But the writing was on the wall. Things had to change. Change is coming. At least we hope. There's been a lot of negative feel around a guy like Lester because it's not a splashy hire. It's not a highlight name. It's not a person that you thought was going to have big personality and completely revamp this offense. Let me go ahead and break this down for the Iowa faithful who still don't understand their coach. You have Kirk Ferentz leading the charge. You were never getting a splashy hire. So long as he lives and breathes and has a pulse on the program that is Iowa football, you were never getting a splashy hire. But that does not mean that Lester is a bad hire. We often kind of find ourselves in this room where we say, oh, not the guy I thought, automatically bad. Lester did do some good things when he was at Western Michigan. He did some good things when he was the offensive coordinator at Syracuse. Not a lot, but a little. And he did do some things at least somewhat right as the quarterback's coach at Purdue. But when he was at Western Michigan, he took over for PJ Fleck, and the offense did take a little bit of a dip, but not much. He also was able to do less with more with less. That's a big element when it comes to a place like Iowa. He was able to go land Jaden Reed, the former 3-star wide receiver out of the suburban Chicago area. Well, Reed went off to have nearly an All-American season, and because of it, he got a better offer to go play for Michigan State. Then you also bring in Dwayne Eskridge, and Eskridge has dominant year, nearly an All-American season, and he ends up becoming a second-round pick by the Seattle Seahawks. Then he goes and he adds in Sky Moore, a 3-star cornerback, and turns him into an offensive weapon. Year 1, he gets all-MAC honors over 800 receiving yards. Year 3, he is a 1,000-yard receiver and eventually becomes a second-round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. So in 6 years during his time with the Broncos, he was able to get 3 receivers drafted on day 2. When was the last time that Kirk Ferentz or Brian Ferentz was able to get a receiver drafted, period? Automatically a huge upgrade. And the offense actually still was highly potent. A lot of people are going to turn to last season. A lot of people are going to turn to what happened at the very end of his tenure, which was sour. But for the most part, they ranked usually somewhere in the top 15. I would say you're looking at anywhere between 35 to 40. Few years they were ranked inside the the low 20s. One year I think they were ranked like 19th in scoring or 19th in total yards. They have an offense. The personnel is going to be a little different if Lester does have a say. They like to run a lot of 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, 1 tailback. Maybe that is going to benefit you because you do have 1 good tight end and you do have 2 very good running backs, both of which are expected to return next season, including, of course, LaShawn Williams, and then you also have Caleb Johnson. So reasons for optimism there, reasons to believe that maybe you're going to get something out of it. And you do have some wide receiver play, Caleb Brown being the most prominent name, and you also have Cade McNamara at quarterback. Here's the thing that's really going to matter. Imagine your boss hires you because if you do a really good job at your position, wherever you may be, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in fashion design, whether it be in construction. And then he comes in and he says, I hired you to be a yes man. You're going to tell me yes, yes, yes to everything that I do. And if you disagree with that, then we're going to have some problems. And I don't really want to be working with you. that's kind of how you feel about a guy like Kirk Ferentz. That's really been his MO for a while. It was why Brian gets to keep his job for as long as possible. And it's why you haven't really seen that much of a change when it comes to offensive personality, which is a big deal. It's a very big deal because this is an Iowa team that, with just any bit of offensive consistency, might end up competing for a Big Ten title, might end up competing for a college football playoff spot, might end up competing for national recognition in every way, case, and form that has no jokes about the offense attached to it. You got to let go of the reins. A guy like Tim Lester getting this job brings up two scenarios. Number one, nobody wanted it, and for good reason. Ferentz is going to be the one controlling everything and micromanaging the offense, which is basically shooting himself in the foot. You're not going to get any improvements. Now, you don't have to do everything Lester wants, and you don't have to do everything that Ferentz wants. You just need to have a common balance, whether it be run-heavy offense, which was a very big deal for a guy like Lester at Western Michigan, or maybe run 11 personnel, which was another big deal like for a guy at Lester. But regardless, you got to relinquish the reins a little bit, because if all you're doing is you're getting a yes man, you're setting yourself up for failure. And 2024, I've said on record multiple times, is such a prominent year in the world of college football because of I do think you are going to watch coaches pass this game by. And they are going to retire, and they are going to leave the game, and they're going to make these necessary moves. And I think Ferentz is probably public enemy number one when it comes to this conversation. If you aren't willing to make necessary changes to your offense the way that other coaches have in the past, or the way that other coaches haven't in the past, you have to pay for the consequences. There's an old saying that I follow in life, and that it's, you don't have to be the person to act on something, but your reaction will have consequences. And whatever they are, you have to deal with it. That's really what it comes down to for Iowa this year. They went 10-4 last season, and in large part, they got very lucky because they played in the Big Ten West. Big Ten West no longer exists. You're adding in 4 new teams to the conference, 2 of which are really well put together, and your schedule actually is pretty normal, natural, not really that much concern at the top. Illinois State, Iowa State, Troy to begin the year, then you go to Minnesota. You do have a game against Ohio State, but Washington, Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, all winnable games. And same with, I would say, Maryland and Nebraska. This is a team that can control its own destiny if you relinquish the play calling. But lo and behold, that was the problem for Ferentz when he had his own son. Is that going to be a problem for Lester? I like Iowa. I think Iowa can be a good team. And I know that Iowa has plug-and-play NFL players, and if you have that, you should be able to mow past everybody. I mean, Phil Parker has put together so many top 15 defenses in the last 5 years. He's been able to send so many first-round talents to the NFL, even as a rotational specialist. Does anybody remember Lucas Van Ness? How little he played during his senior season as a rotational guy? Yeah, he ended up being a first-round pick. So you don't want to waste your defensive prowess, especially when defense carries weight in a conference like the Big Ten. You got to relinquish the play calling. I think that there needs to be a middle ground here between the two, whether that be Lester gets to call the plays, he has final say, but it's in Ferentz's personnel, whether it's Ferentz gets to check off on the play, but it's in Lester's personnel. You're not asking for Iowa to overturn the page at night. You're not asking them to basically have a 180 personnel when it comes to offensive consistency. You're asking them not to suck. And honestly, that's the only way you can describe what we saw last season. Really, the last 2 seasons underneath Brian Ferentz. It sucked. You have a mediocre offense, one that ranks somewhere like 78th in total yards, 91st in passing, 60th in rushing, and maybe, 89th in scoring. With that defense, with what you bring back in Phil Parker, that's enough to guarantee you, I would say, 9 wins. And 9 wins does not take you out of the college football playoff hunt. But it all comes down to that. If Ferentz does let go of the play calling, maybe this is a good hire. Maybe this is actually a hire that we look back 5 or 6 years from now and go, hey, remember when Iowa went on a little bit of a run in the playoff? Tim Lester, I wonder what he's doing now. Oh, he's a head coach. Okay, that works out. Or maybe this goes up in smoke. And then a few years from now, we'll ask Tim Lester, hey, what was going on in Iowa City? Did you have final say? No, I didn't. And that's why I was out of a job. And that's why Kirk is no longer employed. All that could happen. I don't think we can judge this hire. Is it an underwhelming hire? Yeah, for the most part. Were we expecting an underwhelming hire? Yeah, for the most part. The bottom line is that it's not Brian Ferentz. Automatically, huge check and a feather in the cap for Hawkeye fans. Number two, this is a team that has always been dependent on its defense. And once again, it's going to be still one of the best in college football. And finally, because there are no more conferences, and you didn't draw Michigan, and you didn't draw Oregon, and you didn't draw a few other teams like Penn State on the schedule, you probably are actually in a decent spot right now. You just got to relinquish the play calling. If that happens, I actually do think that Leicester might pan out and be a pretty significant hire. But if not, I think that we are looking at Iowa as the prime destination for a hotbed job next offseason. It may take some time, but there are going to be pieces in place to where you feel confident moving forward for the Hawkeyes. I like Kirk Ferentz, but at some point, change is necessary. This is a change up is necessary. Are you going to fully commit, or will you self-sabotage yourself and then look at 10-4 when really it should have been probably more so 12-3, if not better? Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.